Welcome to this exploration of Step 3, one of the most transformative steps in the journey of spiritual recovery. Step 3 invites us to move from isolation to connection, from fear to faith, and from the exhausting struggle of trying to control everything to the peaceful surrender of trusting in a power greater than ourselves. This step represents a pivotal turning point where we begin to understand that true freedom doesn't come from managing every aspect of our lives alone, but from opening our hearts to guidance and care from something beyond ourselves. Whether you're just beginning this journey or deepening your understanding, this video will explore what it truly means to make the decision to trust a higher power and how this decision can transform every area of your life. Step 3 asks us to make a conscious decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. This isn't just about saying words or intellectually agreeing with a concept. It's a profound choice to surrender our need for control and to seek guidance from a power greater than ourselves. This step has three essential components that work together to create genuine transformation. First, there's the decision itself, which is a conscious choice to surrender control and acknowledge that we cannot manage our lives through willpower alone. Second, there's the trust, which means believing that this higher power genuinely has our best interests at heart and will guide us with wisdom and love. And third, there's the action, which moves us from simply agreeing with the idea to actually living it out in our daily choices and relationships. Step 3 challenges something deeply ingrained in us, the instinct to manage everything ourselves, and invites us to recognize that true freedom comes not through control, but through trust. For many people, Step 3 represents one of the most difficult hurdles in recovery. The resistance we feel runs much deeper than simple stubbornness. It touches our fundamental fears about safety, about who we are, and about whether we can truly trust anyone or anything with our well-being. Understanding the barriers we face helps us move through them with compassion for ourselves. The first barrier is what we might call the illusion of control. We cling to the belief that if we just try hard enough, think clearly enough, or plan thoroughly enough, we can manage situations that are fundamentally uncontrollable. This illusion feels protective, but it actually exhausts us and keeps us trapped in anxiety. The second barrier is past wounds. Many of us have experienced harm from religious institutions or authority figures who claim to represent God. These negative experiences create understandable skepticism about trusting any higher power. The third barrier is defining the divine. Some people struggle because they have a specific image of God that doesn't resonate with them, or they're unsure what a higher power even means. Here's the liberating truth. The phrase God as we understand Him removes a significant barrier. Your higher power can be unique to you. It might be nature, the universe, love itself, a spiritual community, or a traditional concept of God. What matters is finding what resonates with your own heart and experience. This flexibility transforms Step 3 from something that feels imposed to something that feels authentic and personal.
Let me share three powerful stories of people who found freedom through trusting a higher power, each taking a different path. Spencer grew up in a rigid religious environment where God was portrayed as punishing and judgmental. This shaped his understanding of spirituality for years, creating resistance to Step 3. But as he worked through his recovery, Spencer realized he could redefine his higher power on his own terms. He came to understand his higher power as loving, creative, and genuinely interested in his well-being. This personal redefinition freed him from the baggage of his past and allowed him to genuinely trust. Mary's journey looked different. She struggled with control in her relationships, constantly trying to fix people and manage outcomes. When she began to practice Step 3, she started releasing her grip on these relationships, trusting that the people she loved were in divine care. What surprised her was the transformation that followed. Not only did her anxiety decrease, but her relationships actually improved because she stopped trying to control them. She discovered unexpected peace and genuine connection. Markin came to recovery as a skeptic, unsure whether he could believe in anything beyond himself. But through his journey, he began to recognize signs of a loving, protective presence in his life. He started to see his higher power not as punishing, but as genuinely caring for his well being. Each of these stories teaches us something crucial. Willingness to trust grows gradually through small acts of surrender and through accumulating evidence of being cared for. You don't need to arrive at perfect faith all at once. Trust deepens one small step at a time.
Making the decision to trust is a practical journey that combines spiritual openness with concrete actions. Let me walk you through 4 proven approaches that can help you move from intellectual understanding to lived experience. First, engage in prayerful reflection. This means having an honest conversation with your higher power, asking for wisdom and courage to take this step. You might say something like, "I'm afraid, but I'm willing to try trusting you. Help me find the courage to let go." This simple act of reaching out opens a channel for guidance. Second, seek trusted counsel. Connect with spiritually mature individuals who have successfully navigated their own trust journey. Their experience and perspective can illuminate your path and help you see that others have walked this road before you. Third, use practical discernment tools. This means weighing the pros and cons of your decision while complementing faith-based decision-making with common sense. Spiritual guidance doesn't negate practical wisdom. Fourth, embrace the process. Recognize that deciding to trust is rarely a single moment, but an ongoing practice that deepens over time. If turning your entire life over feels overwhelming, start small. Choose one area of your life where you're willing to practice trust. Maybe it's your finances, your relationships, your career, or your health. Begin with that one area and gradually expand your surrender as your confidence grows. This starting small approach makes step 3 feel manageable and allows you to build evidence that trust actually works. Trust isn't merely a feeling or an intellectual concept. It manifests in concrete behaviors and attitudes that shape how we navigate daily life. Let me describe what trust looks like in action. Committing to care means placing our worries, our dreams, our relationships, and our future into our higher power's hands, believing they will be held with love and wisdom. It's releasing the burden of carrying everything alone. Releasing control means ending our obsessive attempts to control others and outcomes, recognizing the limits of our power. This doesn't mean becoming passive. It means directing our energy toward what we can influence and trusting the rest. Active faith means trust isn't passive. It's readiness to act in alignment with spiritual guidance while surrendering attachment to specific results. We do our part and trust the outcome to our higher power. Persistent belief means maintaining faith even when outcomes differ from our plans, trusting that a larger wisdom is at work. In relationships, trust looks like allowing others their own journey, releasing the need to fix people, and trusting that loved ones are in divine care. In decisions, it looks like seeking guidance before acting, remaining open to unexpected paths, and accepting closed doors gracefully. In uncertainty, it looks like breathing through anxiety, focusing on present moments, and believing in ultimate good even when we can't see the full picture. Fear of the unknown and anxiety about future outcomes represent the most common barriers to trusting a higher power. Let me acknowledge something important. These emotions are entirely natural and often indicate we're on the threshold of genuine growth. Understanding the cycle of fear helps us move through it. Fear emerges when anxiety about unknown outcomes surfaces. Recognition happens when we acknowledge the fear without judgment, simply noticing it's there. Surrender is when we release the fear to our higher power, consciously choosing to let go. Peace returns when trust replaces anxiety, at least temporarily. This cycle often repeats, and that's normal. History shows us inspiring examples of people who demonstrated extraordinary trust despite uncertainty. People who sold homes without knowing where they'd live next, or left secure careers to pursue their calling. These acts of faith often led to unexpected blessings. 3 strategies help manage fear as we practice trust. First, reframing uncertainty means viewing the unknown as the space where miracles happen, rather than as threatening. Second, building evidence means accumulating experiences where things worked out better than imagined. Keep a gratitude journal, noting times when trust served you well. Third, Community support means sharing anxieties with trusted friends who understand the journey. This lightens the emotional burden and strengthens your resolve. You don't have to face fear alone. One of the most important truths about Step 3 is that it's not a one-time event, but a continual practice of surrender and renewal. We don't make this decision once and check it off our list. Instead, we return to it repeatedly as new challenges arise and old patterns of control resurface. This ongoing nature shouldn't discourage us. It reflects the reality of human nature and spiritual growth. Our minds naturally gravitate toward control and self-reliance, especially when stressed or afraid. Recognizing this tendency without judgment allows us to gently redirect ourselves back to trust each time we notice we've drifted. Think of it like exercising a spiritual muscle. Each time we practice surrender, we strengthen our capacity for trust. Here's a daily practice framework that helps maintain this ongoing surrender. Begin each morning with morning surrender, consciously turning your will and lives over and setting the tone for trust throughout the day. During the day, practice midday reset by pausing to release control when you notice tension building or anxious thoughts dominating. In the evening, engage in evening reflection by reviewing the day with gratitude, noting where trust served you and where you struggled. Throughout this ongoing practice, you'll experience ongoing growth as trust deepens naturally through witnessing your higher power's faithful care. Each act of surrender, however small, strengthens your spiritual muscles and makes the next act of trust slightly easier. Trust deepens as we experience the higher power's care in daily life. When we commit to trusting a higher power with our decisions, we gain access to practical spiritual wisdom that guides our choices. I want to share a framework called the 5 C's of godly decision-making. The first C is Counsel of Saints, which means seeking wisdom from spiritually mature individuals who have walked this path before. Learn from their experience and perspective. The second C is Commanding Scripture, which means drawing on sacred texts and spiritual teachings that provide timeless principles for living. These serve as guardrails aligned with values that lead to growth. The third C is Common Sense, which recognizes that spiritual guidance doesn't negate practical wisdom. God gave us minds and intelligence for a reason, and we can honor both faith and common sense. The fourth C is Compelling Spirit, which means paying attention to inner promptings, gut feelings, or spiritual intuition that arises when we're quiet and receptive. These subtle nudges often carry profound wisdom. The fifth C is Coincidental Signs, which means remaining attentive to meaningful coincidences, unexpected opportunities, or patterns that emerge. While avoiding superstition, these God winks can confirm we're on the right path. The power of these 5 C's lies in integration, not isolation. They work best together. When multiple indicators align, when wise counsel confirms what Scripture teaches, when common sense agrees, when our spirit feels at peace, and when circumstances seem to be opening doors, we can move forward with greater confidence that we're following divine guidance. Remember, patience in the process. Sometimes the answer isn't immediately clear, and waiting for clarity while maintaining trust becomes a spiritual practice itself. Step 3 transforms fear into faith and control into peace. Making the decision to trust a higher power places us in capable, loving hands. Hands that have been there all along, waiting patiently for us to surrender our desperate grip on control. This act of trust represents one of the most transformative choices we can make in our recovery journey and in our lives. Consider the journey from bondage, where we're trapped in fear, control, and self-reliance that exhausts us, to opening, where we begin considering the possibility that surrender might lead to freedom. Then comes decision, where we make the choice to trust even when it feels risky and uncomfortable. This leads to peace, where we discover the serenity that comes from releasing what we cannot control. Finally, we experience freedom, the liberation of living with faith rather than fear. Step 3 converts our exhausting efforts to manage the unmanageable into a peaceful collaboration with divine wisdom. While undeniably challenging, Step 3 opens the door to the saner, more hopeful life discovered in Step 2. Here's my final invitation to you. You don't need perfect faith to take this step. You don't need absolute certainty about who or what your higher power is. You simply need willingness. Willingness to try trusting, to experiment with surrender, to see what happens when you release your grip just a little bit. The freedom you seek is already within reach. It begins with this sacred decision to surrender. Take this step with courage, knowing that countless others have walked this path before you and discovered that trust truly does lead to freedom.